Tensions between the United States and the Russian Federation have reached a critical point, threatening to ignite a direct military confrontation between the world's two largest nuclear powers. Earlier today, the Kremlin issued a formal and deeply contemptuous rejection of an ultimatum delivered by the administration of President Donald Trump. The specifics of the ultimatum, believed to be linked to Russia's ongoing military operations in Eastern Europe, were not publicly detailed by either side. But Moscow's response has left no room for diplomatic ambiguity. The Russian government has characterized the American demands as an unacceptable infringement on its national sovereignty and a form of international blackmail. This sharp refusal has triggered a flurry of high-stakes activity in Washington, where senior officials are now openly discussing military options that were once considered unthinkable, including the possibility of targeted missile strikes against strategic locations within Moscow itself. The Russian response was delivered with theatrical defiance. In a televised press conference from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Moscow, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, a veteran diplomat known for his stern demeanor, read a prepared statement. He stated that Russia does not negotiate on the threats and will not be dictated to by any foreign power. He accused the Trump administration of adopting a reckless and aggressive posture that jeopardized global stability. Lavrov warned that any military action against Russian territory would be met with an immediate and devastating response, emphasizing that Russia's strategic forces are on high alert. He added that the United States was attempting to single-handedly rewrite rules of international conduct to suit its own interests, a path he described as leading to catastrophe. The Kremlin's official spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, reinforced this message, telling state news agencies that President Vladimir Putin views the American ultimatum as a sign of desperation, not strength. Peskov suggested that Washington misunderstands the resolve of the Russian people and their government. The rejection sent immediate shockwaves through the White House, where President Trump was reportedly briefed on the Russian response by his national security team. Sources inside the administration, speaking on the condition of anonymity, described the president as being furious with Moscow's open defiance. President Trump believes his ultimatum was a clear opportunity for the Kremlin to de-escalate the conflict in Ukraine and that its scornful rejection is a personal and national insult. In the hours following Moscow's announcement, the president has been in constant consultation with his top cabinet officials, weighing a response that could fundamentally alter the course of modern history. The central and most alarming option now being considered is a limited, punitive military strike. The task of outlining these military options falls to Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth, a former Fox News contributor and a combat veteran. Hegseth has long advocated for a more muscular American foreign policy, particularly in dealing with adversaries like Russia. At the Pentagon, Secretary Hegseth is chairing a series of emergency meetings with the Joint Chief of Staff. Discussions are focused on the feasibility, risk, and potential consequence of launching long-range conventional missiles, such as the Navy Tomahawk cruise missile, against targets in and around Russian capital. The proposed targets are said to include key military command and control centers, intelligence agency headquarters, and certain government buildings directly associated with the planning and execution of the war in Ukraine. Planners are working to develop strike packages that could, in theory, neutralize specific military capabilities without causing widespread civilian casualties. The technical challenges are immense. Moscow is protected by one of the most sophisticated and dense air defense networks in the world, including advanced S-400 and S-500 surface-to-air missile system. Any American attack would need to overcome these defenses, likely through a combination of stealth technology, electronic warfare, and a large volume of missiles to overwhelm the Russian system. Proponents of the strike, including Secretary Hegseth, argue that A successful operation would demonstrate American strength and resolve, shattering Russia's sense of invulnerability. They contend that failing to act decisively after the public rejection of a presidential ultimatum would fatally undermine American credibility on the world stage. They believe a sharp, painful blow is the only language the Kremlin will understand, and that it is necessary to re-establish deterrence. However, this hawkish view is not uniformly shared across the Trump administration, and a serious internal debate is now on the way. Providing a more cautious perspective is the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. As the head of the intelligence community, Gabbard is responsible for providing the president with a clear-eyed assessment of the potential blowback from a military strike. Her agency's analysts reportedly warn of a high probability of uncontrollable escalation. The intelligence assessment suggests that the Russian leadership, facing a direct attack on its capital, would be politically unable to absorb the blow without retaliating forcefully. This retaliation could take many forms, including massive cyber attack against American critical infrastructure, conventional missile strike on US and NATO base in Europe, or even the use of tactical nuclear weapons on the battlefield in Ukraine to dramatically raise the stakes. Director Gabbard's position is that a strike on Moscow crossed a dangerous red line and could easily spiral into a direct, large-scale war between NATO and Russia, a conflict that both sides have successfully avoided for over 75 years. The diplomatic implications are also a major point of concern. A portfolio managed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Secretary Rubio, a longtime Russia hawk, is now in the difficult position of balancing the president's desire for a strong response with the need to maintain international alliance. From the State Department headquarters in Foggy Bottom, Rubio has been on the phone with his counterparts in key allied nations, including the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and Poland. While these allies have been steadfast in their condemnation of Russia's action in Ukraine, the prospect of a U.S. missile strike on Moscow is being met with extreme apprehension. European leaders are terrified that such a move would turn their continent into the primary battlefield in a new great power conflict. They are urging restraint and are desperate for a diplomatic off-ramp, a path that seems to be closing rapidly. Secretary Rubio is tasked with gauging how much support, if any, the U.S. would have for such a dramatic escalation, and is reportedly warning the president that a unilateral American strike could fracture the NATO alliance at its most critical moment. The economic fallout is another critical factor being weighed. Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent has presented the president with a stark analysis of what a direct U.S.-Russia military conflict would mean for the American and global economies. His assessment predicts an immediate and catastrophic reaction from financial markets. Global stocks markets would likely plummet, oil and gas price would skyrocket to unprecedented level, and global supply chains, already fragile, would be completely severed. Bessent has argued that the resulting economic depression could be worse than the 2008 financial crisis and would severely damage the American economy, potentially erasing the economic gains of the past several years. He is making the case that the financial and economic costs of a war with Russia would be immense and long-lasting, urging the president to consider these consequences before authorizing military action. Adding to the complexity of the situation is the domestic security dimension. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem has placed her department on high alert. Federal law enforcement and intelligence agencies are preparing for a potential wave of retaliatory actions from Russia on American soil. The primary concern is in cyberspace. A direct military strike would almost certainly trigger a response from Russia's highly capable state-sponsored hacking groups. Potential targets include the U.S. power grid, financial systems, water treatment facilities, and transportation networks. Secretary Noem is coordinating with state and local government as well as private sector partner to manage this critical infrastructure to bolster defense against a potential onslaught of cyber attacks. The threat of Russian intelligence operative carrying out more direct actions within the United States is also being taken very seriously, raising the overall threat level across the country. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, has been tasked with developing the legal justification for any potential strike. The White House would need to frame the action as a legitimate act of defense, possibly arguing that it is necessary to prevent a wider conflict or to respond to Russia's ongoing aggression that threaten U.S. national security interests. However, international law scholars are already arguing that a preemptive strike on the capital of a sovereign nation without a direct attack on the United States would be a clear violation of the United Nations Charter. Crafting a legal argument that would be accepted by the international community or even a majority of the American public will be an enormous challenge. In Congress, the reaction is one of shock and division. Lawmakers from both parties are demanding to be briefed by the administration. Some of President Trump's staunchest allies are publicly supporting a strong response, echoing the sentiment that American credibility is on the line. They argue that years of perceived weakness have emboldened adversaries like Russia and that the time has come to draw a firm line. However, a growing number of members from both parties are expressing grave concerns. They are reminding the administration that the Constitution gives the power to declare war to Congress, not the president, and are warning against a unilateral executive action that could lead to a catastrophic war without the consent of the American people's representatives. They are calling for caution, de-escalation, and a renewed push for a diplomatic solution, no matter how difficult it may seem. Meanwhile, the world watches with bated breath. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres made an urgent public appeal for calm and dialogue, stating that any miscalculation could lead to an abyss of a kind we have not seen in generations. In Beijing, the Chinese government has called on both sides to exercise maximum restraint and resolve their differences through peaceful means, subtly positioning itself as a potential mediator while also criticizing what it calls American unilateralism. In Kyiv, the Ukrainian government is in a precarious position. While officials are undoubtedly encouraged by the strong stance from the Trump administration, they are also acutely aware that their country would be on the front lines of any wider conflict. A full-scale war between the US and Russia would be fought over and across their territory, bringing a level of destruction that would dwarf what they have already endured. Back in Washington, the decision rests solely with President Trump. He is surrounded by a cabinet with diverse opinions. He is hearing the arguments from hawks like Secretary Hegseth, who advocate for a decisive military blow. He is hearing the warning from intelligence professionals like Director Gabbard about uncontrollable escalation. He is hearing the concerns from diplomats like Secretary Rubio about fracturing alliance. He is hearing the dire economic predictions from his Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. The coming hours will be decisive. The president must weigh the potential benefits of restoring American deterrence against the catastrophic risk of initiating a direct war with a nuclear-armed Russia. His choice will have profound consequences not only for the United States and Russia, but for the entire world as the international community stands on a knife edge, fearing a single step in the wrong direction. The mulling of strikes on Moscow is no longer a theoretical exercise. It is an active and urgent debate at the highest level of the American government, born from a rejected ultimatum and a world sliding closer to open conflict. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel. And so many of you don't even know that you haven't subscribed. And that is actually what makes the show going. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. And we're going for the long haul here. And listen, if this is your first time listening to Sokheim Rich, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first ones on me. But if you have watched this show before, it's like you're a freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build this show for you. That I swear. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.